Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey and I am here with friends to talk about women's professional road cycling. Today, we're going to discuss the European Championship, time trial, road race, junior races, U23 races, everything that happens at the European Championships over the last week. We're going to talk about a couple new signings, including a bunch of young riders signed to World Tour teams and see where that conversation takes us, and a bit of news hits. Plus, we have to talk about the album. So let's dive into it. With me today, the full team. Georgie, how?
Hi guys, what's up? It feels very official. I'm not at home. I'm in the office, which feels a bit odd.
You're like a real adult now.
No. I'm a 12-year-old masquerading as a real adult.
Gracie Elvin.
Hello. It's so good to be here with the besties. Last week we had some pretty great guests, but it's nice having the OGs here.
Man, last week was wild. I can't believe that I pulled that together. Loren Rowney?
Yeah, g'day everyone. That was partially my fault, bailing at the very last minute. But I mean, when you get Iris and Grace on, can you ask for better guests? No,
it was totally fine. It was fine, and
it was a good podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
I love Iris. She's so Dutch.
She is. She is so Dutch. She always brings such a refreshing feel to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If she had any free time, we would try to wrangle her into being every other week or something like that. But her schedule is jam-packed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to get more jam-packed, right?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a good amount to discuss today, so let's dive into it. The European Championships were last week. It was a really quick turnaround from the World Championships all the way in Rwanda to the European Championships in France. It was already on Wednesday that we had the time trial, so riders really flew straight to race the European Championships. And Marlon Reusser added another European title to her already two titles on top of her world championship title. So I don't think there's much surprise there, but I was really excited to see May Ortestad with the second place in the European time trial. That was a great result for her, for Norway.
Yeah, I feel like she's been knocking at the door. I think the first time I saw her this year was Strade Bianche, where she really impressed me there. And I feel like she's kind of been in and around the top results. But yeah, this is a really solid performance by her. And I think something that she'll hope to build upon. To be in a 33-minute time trial, 34-minute time trial, to be 50 seconds off a rider the caliber of Reusser is not bad.
And yeah, Misha Bredewald's in third as well for the Netherlands. She's the Dutch national time trial champion, but when it comes to the Dutch caliber of time trialists, it's hard to look past Demi and Anna van der Breggen, especially with their world's performance. But Misha did a really great job representing in the Europeans with those two not racing the time trial.
I think this is something Gracie has spoken about with Australia, was that's probably the way to do it, right? The Dutch have always had really strong time trialists, but you have to spread it around a bit, because if you just keep investing in the same athletes when they get to the end of their time and then they exit the sport, if there's no one that is, an emerging talent that's been nurtured and is getting the same resources, then there's this gap that you find. So I think Misha is a future talent that we thought maybe Rihanna Marcus would maybe fill that spot, but I'm curious in terms of her development, what's happened there, because at one point it really felt like she was going to be the next Van Dijk. But Misha is definitely a rider who can look towards this sort of path of maybe future world champion.
Rihanna is, I think it's a tricky one with her. She passed over for the Olympics, she was the next cab off the rank had Ellen not raced. And I think she's, had a bit of a sour taste in her mouth after that. And then, heading into this year, we caught up with her at the Tour de France, Loren, and she said that she was having not the best year in terms of her own ambitions. She's struggling with a few things health-wise, so possibly it's got to do with that, or maybe just even internal politics within the National Sporting Organisation, which we know can definitely be the case in times like this. So yeah, who's to know? But she was a name I was expecting to see in the start list for something like this.
I think with her race at the World Championships in the road race, she had such a great race in the road race there that the turnaround was really quick, and they gave the second spot to Noyan instead for a chance to test herself. You know, she's only 24 and rides for Visma bike normally, and she's not gotten much opportunity to race for the Netherlands on the national team on like a bigger stage like the elite Europeans. So for her, she finished fifth in the end, like a respectable little bit less, 1 second less than a minute down from Reuser. But she's like, they're nurturing her as a talent, up and coming talent as well. So I think they did a good job with this. And we're going to talk more about how the Dutch Federation is handling their not only rider selection, but how they race together and how it is benefiting the team to have Loren Stendam running the show instead of who they've had running the program for many years before the end of last season. Just one more thing on the elite TT is Katrin Allerud finished fourth, which means that Norway was 2 in the top 4, which is pretty rad. I mean, not always surprising to have 2 Dutch in the top 5, but 2 Norwegians in the top 4 is pretty great.
UnoX have been like coming back up this year.
Yeah, UnoX Mobility is like their investment into women's cycling with their World Tour team and having a strong focus on Norwegian Scandinavian riders is obviously paying off if you've got 2 riders in the top 4 of the European time trial.
And they've got an emerging talent. She'll be a first year next year. Oda Orna Hissinger. She's been really great in the junior ranks this year. So she'll finish out as an under 19 this year. And she signed with Coop Repsol, which I think was a really good move. Really long established continental team with links to UnoX, I believe. And that might be something that we see in the future is that UnoX and Coop might work in collaboration, that young riders, Scandinavians, go on to Coop and then develop there for a year or 2. And then move up to the UnoX team.
I like that. That's great.
So it's another good example of talent following the money, you know, like it's something that we've spoken about for many years now is you've got to invest, and to see investment coming from both the pro team type level and also national federation level across quite a few countries now that we haven't seen strength or depth, and now we are seeing some real talent coming through, and it's clearly because there's been investment there. And there's also good examples where it's not happening still, and you'd think that there'd be a huge talent pool, and the United States is probably the best example of that. So it's to see a small country like Norway punching above its weight, it's like you don't have to look that far to see why that's happening.
Yeah, Norway has always been really good at their athlete management, just from like the get-go, from like young riders all the way through. And I think that's we've seen the result of that. Like they're really cognizant of like how their riders are doing health-wise, regardless of if they're on a professional team, if they're triathletes. They're very much honed in on rider health, particularly female rider health. So I think that's definitely part of why we're seeing such success in their athletes.
Speaking of nations having a lot of recent success, Paula Ostis won both the junior time trial and road race for the Europeans, adding to her success in Rwanda. She won the road race and was second in the time trial at the World Championships. So following that up with 2 wins at the Europeans, and she's one of the, I think, number 1 riders to watch in the coming years. She's signed for the next 3 years with Movistar, so she's already been racing with them a bit this year as a stagiaire, but she's got 3 years with their World Tour team coming up, and she's one of those riders that like is going to be a fascinating one coming out of the juniors straight into the World Tour, having had so much success on the junior level. Like she had so many wins this year on the junior circuit, and she's kind of like a Kat Ferguson in that way, that you would expect her to be one of the juniors going straight into the World Tour that is going to be successful in that transition, or at least not have hopefully not have as many setbacks as some of the other juniors that are pulled straight into the World Tour ranks.
I think she raced with Movistar GP Wallonia, which would have been the lead-up
Grand Prix
race.
Wallonie.
Yeah. And she was around 40th there. I mean, she was in one of those. That's quite a hard race. And she was in one of those front sort of groups. She's definitely, I think, going to be a more classic Ardennes style rider as she develops, but she's so young, you just don't know, right? But she's an exciting rider. I had the privilege to watch some of the junior races in person this year, and she's not afraid to have a go, and that's something I really respect, because quite often when you watch under 19 races, they're a little bit more reserved. Teamwork is something that not many nations have learned yet. It's a skill that you learn over time, but she was always an aggressor and just having a crack. So I think that's probably important if you're going to step straight up to the World Tour, is that you have that confidence within you, because not all riders have that level of confidence at the age of 18 years. But of course, yeah, Movistar has done a pretty good job, I would say, in general with developing young talents that come straight out of the junior ranks, with a few exceptions, of course.
That was a question we got from one of the listeners, actually, was asking about how teams are doing in terms of sheltering and developing riders straight out of the juniors, and if it feels like there's more pressure now when it comes to plucking a junior off of straight out of juniors into the World Tour, if there's more pressure on those riders now than there used to be.
I can speak to that a little bit if you want as an agent. There's certainly way more pressure. And I can only speak from the woman's point of view, not the men's. But even talking with my colleagues who've been in the game quite a long time, like before they weren't really looking at the juniors throughout the year. It was more rolled around to the World Championships or the Europeans, and then paid attention to, okay, that junior, like the juniors who are in the top 3. And then whoever was the world champion would sign with a decent team. I think that was sort of the trend. But now it's like very much looking to first year 19s to already get a sense of who are the emerging talents, and then already having conversations with them. And that's not just agents, but that's teams as well. So teams have scouts too. I can think of Picnic NL, like they have a scout that's out there going to all the junior races, and we're going to get into that because they just signed some of the top juniors and sort of how that works. But definitely there is pressure, and my colleague was saying to me, he found the problem with Australians, the ones that don't come over here early enough and don't commit to a full season of racing the Nations Cups, and some other key events that are here in Northern Europe. They're at a disadvantage regardless of how talented they are, unless they manage to pull off a rainbow jersey. So there's an immense amount of pressure. And I'm still trying to figure out how to manage that, because these are really young people, and a lot of the talents I've spoken to also want to juggle school and things like that, which is something I really value, and it's important in their development, but just developing them as human beings as well, because we don't want burnout, and that's sort of a fear of mine.
What about the training ceiling as well? Yeah, so I was chatting with a colleague earlier this week, and just kind of going into like, okay, you got an 18-year-old already training 25 hours a week. Where have they got to go after that? And so like if they're training 25 hours a week and racing other 18-year-olds, there's going to be a significant difference in the quality of that rider in comparison to their compatriots. But then when they step into the elite ranks, they're already training 25 hours a week. Where have they got to go?
Yeah, brilliant point. Just had this discussion.
I just was going to say there's not going to really be anyone monitoring it. It's up to the teams to be able to decide whether they're going to do that or not. And some will be looking after juniors, or even under 23s for that matter, in a way that helps them progress, and other teams won't. They'll be smashing them because they've got the talent.
This is something I think Georgie and I spoke about months ago. My husband is working in rowing, and he developed a growth curve. So with rowing, of course, because it's a heavyweight discipline now, the lightweights don't get to race at the Olympics. He takes into consideration, well, if he's looking at a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old, he looks at a whole bunch of different factors before he makes an assessment of whether they should invest in them or not. Because are they only training 10 hours a week? Are they focusing a lot on school? Are they more advanced in their development as a woman, for example? If we look at some of the juniors, like they look like men or they look like grown women. I can tell you right now, I didn't become a woman until I was in my early 20s or so, or like around 25. I felt like I had developed. So that is a big problem, and I think there's just a lot of pressure, if I can be honest, from its teams and agencies, because it's such a competitive market now. And I was saying just yesterday to my colleague, well, I have this super talent, but I know she only trained 10 hours a week this year, and she still managed to pull off medals at the Junior Worlds track competition, which was phenomenal. But like, if then you compare her to another junior I have who trains like a pro and lived like a pro this year, how can you compare? And it's not fair. And like, it's those riders that sometimes fall through the cracks because they just can't land themselves on a team, and then they just decide, oh, it's too much. It's too much work, and maybe I'm not worth it, which is not true at all.
And another factor that is definitely connected is the racing availability for these athletes. And it just ties always into that conversation about it's so heavily stacked of World Tour races in the calendar. Like, where are the 1.1s? Where are the 2.1s? Where are the races where these riders can be taken by the pro teams to develop all of their skills and strength, and not only be doing the World Tour level events? And Abby, you might be able to speak to this a little bit more too, but I've definitely caught wind that the UCI wants to change the nature of the Nations Cup type races from under 23s to under 19s. And I think they're seeing that more from the lens of men's cycling, in that they don't see the point anymore of the under 23 category in men's cycling, because the talent is pushing through earlier and earlier now. So, just use that for the men. So I think there's a big loss there for under 23 men. But I think for women, we barely had any under 23 races anyway. So and we only just ever had the first separate race for the under 23 women at the World Championship. So it feels like we've taken one step forward and two steps back, in a sense that there might be less opportunity to have more under 23 races for women in the future, which is such a shame, because that would have been such a nice development ground for so many athletes that aren't the super talents but still very talented and needed those opportunities, either if they're already in World Tour teams or not.
Yeah, this came, news of this kind of came earlier last week when the UCI did one of their massive drops. And it was part of the rules about aero helmets, and some aero helmets being allowed and some not, the handlebar width, and kind of an update on that, since we did talk a lot about the handlebar width actually, is that they're going to allow like a TUE for like riders like Neve Fisher-Black, for example, to have narrower handlebars. Yeah.
Well, they're just creating more admin for themselves unnecessarily, and continuing to use blanket rules for lots of things. So stupid.
Yes. Yeah. So as of 2026, the UCI is going to discontinue the under 23 Nations Cups and put more emphasis on the junior men's and junior women's Nation Cups. And they're planning like two different series that will help with development on, in theory, all continents. Like the way that they've spun this is very much in their favor media-wise, and is an emphasis on trying to develop established junior teams that will, create better pathways, et cetera, while also allowing national federations to race their junior riders on an actual series of races. But that they didn't really say anything about what that means for U23s. And like with the Tour de l'Avenir, for example, we've only had it for 3 years, and it's such an important race for the U23s to have that. And even though we see a bunch of World Tour riders dominating l'Avenir, it's still an opportunity for those riders to win when they don't get that normally on their World Tour teams. Yeah, they have great opportunities racing in the World Tour, but most of the time those U23 riders are riding in support, and they need to learn how to win somehow. And yeah, they probably had a lot of success as juniors. If you look at someone like Shirin Van Anrooy, like she knows how to win a race. But for someone like Isabella Holmgren, for example, like she didn't really have that much development on the road as a junior. She raced for a little bit for that Watersley R&D team and had some experience on the road, but she's definitely more on the mountain bike cyclocross side. So coming into the road scene for Little Trek, she barely raced the first year, which is great because she's so young, and you really don't want someone like her to burn out. She's a huge talent for Canadian cycling. And raced a little bit more with them this year, had a win with the elite team, but still, like she needs something like going to the Canadian national team with Lavenir to take a step out of the World Tour and kind of return to her roots and like get her head, on straight. When you've been around a World Tour environment so much, it can burn you out really, really fast. And being part of a national team and racing something like a U23 race, that's a lot, in a lot of ways, it is less pressure for some riders, especially the World Tour riders. So it's important for those that aren't on a World Tour team. It's important for those that are. So I really hope that the UCI, puts a little bit more thought into this and doesn't just completely do away with Nations Cups for U23s, because it's so important that those continue. And it's important for riders who, not every rider straight out of juniors is being picked up by a World Tour team. There still needs to be a development pathway for riders that aren't on big teams that are U23 to show themselves in a way that World Tour teams will take notice, so that they can pick up riders, that are older. They can't just keep signing junior riders. It's not sustainable. Like, I've talked to so many riders that are older in the peloton that are just so fed up with the fact that their teams are only picking up young riders, but there's all of these riders who are not juniors that show an immense amount of talent, but aren't getting picked up because they're already 24. Like, are you joking? That's nothing. Women
Don't get me started, Abby.
Way later. Yeah. I was making the show notes for this episode, and I was like, I don't know how much I should even go into detail about like bullet points, because I feel like everything that has happened in the last week is just like, we're going to go off on so many side quests.
Look, this is my 2 cents. And again, I can't speak to men's cycling because I don't follow it closely anymore. I haven't for a very long time.
I mean, they're two different sports, so we shouldn't compare the two.
But
anyway.
I can tell you right now, I worked with the junior women's, we'll call them the Australian team this year, and I had to develop their program in February. Between the races being cancelled and just poor admin from a certain person, the schedule that I could basically draw up for them for 3 months, and they were here from end of April to start of July or something like that, was 90% racing in Belgium in kermesses, because there was nothing else available for them. There's a Toekomst Cup in the Netherlands, which is a fantastic series, but as a team you have to commit to the full series. It's, I think, 8 races spread throughout the Netherlands. Really good racing. There are some national races in France that if you sign up in advance, you can go do those ones. I think it's the same in Spain. And I'm speaking about under 19 women. But for the Nations Cups, I think there were five or six, and one was cancelled in the Netherlands. And those are spread out throughout the year. For the men, if you saw their calendar compared to the women's calendar, I can send it to you guys offline. It was like every day of every week, there was some sort of event happening throughout the whole of Europe. They could race every single day from basically March until October. It was insane. So I don't think they need any more investment into their calendar right now, because it's there and it exists and it's been there a very long time. And I think that's also why now there's even more pressure, is these boys have so much opportunity to race that like if you're not doing well at these junior under 19 races and getting into those Devo teams, or some of the really top ones get signed straight away to the World Tour, then it even becomes hard for them when they become a first year 23, second year 23. But it's the women's calendar. Like there's just been no investment into the under 19s calendar. So I think that's something that needs investment. And then just the continental calendar. Okay, if we're not going to have an under 23 level, which we never really have in women's cycling, if we think about it, L'Avenir is a standalone event. It was those continental races, those UCI 1.2s, those 2.2s, the 1.1s. When we had that full calendar 10 years ago of those races, those were the opportunities. And even if I think of the Australian national team that used to run, those were the races that we used to go to, coupled with some Belgium Kermesse racing. And that was sort of the perfect environment. I mean, Gracie, that's basically how you got picked up, was doing a national team program in 2012. And then you did extremely well getting podiums and races like Borselay.
I really cut my teeth on those Belgian Cups, the UCI 1.1s. Like there was a lot. And then even when I was in Greenedge from 2013 onwards, like we still went to a lot of those races because it was still the World Cup calendar for a few more years. But yeah, there was just there's so much variety of different levels of racing. I gained confidence. I learned how to race differently. I wasn't getting my head smashed in every week because I was definitely, that was happening enough already. So yeah, and just going back to the comment I made about the Norwegian racing and American racing, like a lot of countries such as America and definitely Australia is in that basket. We relied on funding for our national teams to exist, but those races were the bread and butter of those teams. So it's kind of like a chicken or the egg in some ways, that because less of those races exist, it's harder to justify bringing a national squad over from an off-continent country.
I guess this is where you can chime in, Georgie, now about the business model and why those races were unable to survive and have fallen away.
Yeah, the whole cycling industry is struggling with this at the moment. Like we've seen even at the elite level, races like Thüringen haven't been able to survive, and that's been one of the longest running races in the women's calendar. Yeah, I think it comes back to where the team's putting their money, and like until teams really invest in that development level like substantially and consistently, it's really difficult for races to be justified. Like, I mean, the continental level of racing is fraught with issues around like teams folding left, right, and center, extremely unpredictable like futures for them, some only lasting a year, as we saw with Hess, Life Plus Wahoo as well, like defaulting all the time. It's not a consistently stable thing for race organizers to look at as something to invest in. So I understand why they're not putting those races in. And then you think about you think about the domestic level racing that you have across the US and Australia as well, where those riders can indeed prove themselves domestically as well. And that's also struggling. Like the Pro Velo League here in Australia nearly didn't get off the ground for this next year. So I'm not sure what the situation is like in the States, but it doesn't sound great from what I've heard. So yeah, there is just like fewer and fewer opportunities for those developing riders, actually no matter their age, to really cut their teeth on those smaller level races, because there just aren't that many. Because what's the ROI for those race organizers really?
Yeah, it needs to be like part of a bigger calendar, and there needs to be some kind of linear storyline throughout the whole year that will be like for a reason for races to exist outside of the World Tour. Yeah,
and like he's like, you shouldn't have to rely on the likes of Trek or Jayco or Movistar turning up to these races for them to survive. Like they should be there for, and honestly, like there should be races without those teams.
100%.
Yeah.
So Paul also won the junior road race, and yeah, like, I mean, just to wrap up the conversation about young riders, it's one of the Worlds and the Europeans, and also things like, you know, the Pan Ams are one of the few opportunities for these junior riders to win a major title. So Paula going into Movistar with a couple, and that's really nice, but you also had in the kind of conversation of young riders, I was going to bring it up later, but it fits right here, is some of the recent transfer news is of two riders fresh out of juniors, that Growls Watersley R&D team, which is very popular for the youngsters, joining Picnic Post-Nel. So we've been wondering what's going on with Picnic Post-Nel, and obviously a lot of riders have left the team in some broken contracts, but they've now announced two juniors will join: Megan Arens, who won the time trial at the Worlds, and Daniela Hazanova, the Czech rider, who is another one of those emerging junior talents who will be exciting to watch in the future. EF also signed, Uno X Mobility also signed one of the younger riders, Francesca Pellegrini, out of the UAE development team. Not junior, but still like a young rider with a lot of potential, and interesting to see her go from the UAE Devo team into Uno X Mobility as opposed to the UAE ADQ. EF Education also signed a U19 rider in Auk de Boisser, the Belgian rider, out of the next gen U19 Devo team, and that's on top of Sina Kagavi, Swedish time trial champion from Coop Repsol. Not some of the bigger names in terms of transfers, but some really interesting additions to the World Tour. And especially, I've been really keen on watching the riders that EF Education Oatly are picking up now that they have the world champ on their team. They're going to have a lot more eyes on them next year.
Oh yeah.
All right. Moving on with the Europeans. So we had the road races, obviously, and Paula Blasi won the U23 title in the road race. So Spain is really, really, like, they're just incredible with their young riders at the moment and who they have coming through the pipeline. In terms of the elite race, it was, a very different makeup than the World Championship, with bigger teams, especially like for the Dutch. They had a massive team on the start line, and so you have the race very skewed toward teams that have these larger start lists, larger list of riders on the start list, like the Dutch. But the course, the really short race, 116 kilometers, and there was one massive climb in there. Well, not massive, but very hard climb, the 7-kilometer climb, that really determined the race. It was going into that climb, there were only, I think, 18. It was a tiny peloton, like barely any riders left in the race at that point. And the Dutch did a really great job leading that out with for Demi Vollering, and Demi attacked. She was initially followed by Elisa Longoborghini, but in the end, she went solo. Elisa dropped way back. She ended up finishing 10th. And Kasia Niewiadoma and Anna van der Breggen were the group behind Demi. Kasia was left to chase by herself because Anna wasn't about to chase down her teammate. So she rolled in for second, with Anna van der Breggen taking third. For Demi, this is like her first major title. Like, she was the Dutch national champion back in 2023, but she has been chasing a world title for many years at this point. I would say like 5 years she's been in the running to win a world title and has come up short. So this is a big win for her in terms of like what she is capable of with the national team. I think she's done some great things with her trade teams, obviously. Like she won the tour. She's won a lot of world tour races with both FDJ Suez and with SC Works Pro Time. But this is her first success with the national team. And a lot of that comes down to Loren Stendam running the team.
I have to say, I was actually, quite happy to see Demi win. Like, I wouldn't normally say. Look, she's the best rider in the peloton. So, but it's always nice when someone else wins. But she has been knocking on that door for a long time. So it was good to see her get the rewards.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same. I was happy to see her win. Happy to see the Dutch playing nice, I guess. I suppose like so much pressure would have been off after Worlds. Like, of course, it's a serious race and title up for grabs, but you could see that that dynamic is just so different for this race. But she gets to wear that nice jersey for another year now, and that's certainly valuable to her and her pro team.
Yeah, it's so interesting that these race, like I always just find it fascinating that you race a race like this in Worlds with your national team, but then like the World Tour team is the one that benefits from having the world champion or European champion on their team. Whereas like the national team will sometimes, they get funding. For example, like Tom's, when he was fifth at the Olympics, the Cycling Federation got funding from the government because of that. And like, yeah, the same happens if he wins a medal at a world championships or European championships. And it's the same on the women's side. Obviously, I just know more about the Latvian Federation because sit at the dinner table. It's all sports. Yeah.
That's how the funding cycle works, and it's yearly because going back to I'm going to speak for the second time about my husband, but because he works in high performance with rowing, his athletes only managed to ninth. And the policy here in Belgium, it would be very different in countries like really high performing countries, I suppose, like Australia. But to get the maximum of the budget,
you
had a horrendous one. Okay. One boat at least has to run in the top 8 at the Worlds or the Olympics. It's actually easier to run a top 8 at the Olympics, funny enough.
A smaller regatta.
Yeah, exactly. So for him, now he has to review his budget and really like push for it that he still can get that same amount of funding because they missed the mark by one place. So it is a huge deal. So for the Netherlands, definitely, they're used to winning a lot of gold medals across all sports, I feel. So this would have been a huge deal for them. And it was just like the Demi of before, right? That complete domination of that race. And when she went, we've seen it in years before, where she goes and anyone who attempts to match her pace can't hang on. And they blow. So Cassia knew exactly what was going to happen, and she raced her own race and she ended up with the silver medal.
I mean, I think for Demi, like she was on form last week, she said, at the Worlds, but just not feeling it. And Van der Breggen said the same, that she, in the road race, she knew she had really good form in the road race at Worlds, but she couldn't show it. And I think that, the change in atmosphere being down there in Kigali, like it affected some riders more than others. And now they're back on European soil. They're back, in air that they're familiar with. And for Vollering, she clearly came into the end of this season aiming for that world title. And the Europeans is something that it's like a little bit of a consolation prize that she was able to win this after losing out on the world title, but it's still a huge deal for her. And I think that something with Vollering that we've seen so much in the past is that she doesn't read a race super well. I mean, she came into the sport just with a huge engine and no experience of how to race a bike. And now she's slowly learning how to do that. And I think that the new format of the Dutch team, they said at the World Championships that they raced super well together, but they just none of them had it on the day. And then they brought that over to the Europeans and they raced super well together, but they had riders who had it on the day, and Van der Breggen and Vollering were both that. And I think like comparing this to maybe the last 2 World Championships, where like in Zurich last year at the Worlds, Demi had a lot of criticism about her tactics in the race and how she just did not read the race well to win the title. And this year she didn't have it, but she didn't do enough to win the title. And at the Europeans, she really just took no chances and went for a 37-ish kilometer long solo attack to take the title, and just took it out of everyone else's hands, made sure that no one could challenge her. And we know that she's a strong time trialist. So the second she got a gap, like there was no one in the peloton that was going to bring her back. And we didn't have Reusser on the start line. She didn't start the road race after the mixed team relay. And Pauline Ferrand-Prévot has called her season short after her ankle injury from Strade Bianche has been bothering her still. So she's getting surgery on that to recover in time for next season. So she wasn't there either. So kind of the top contenders for Vollering when she made that attack weren't there. And Elise Longa Borghini didn't have it on the climb. And yeah, Kasia said after the race that she like doubted herself mentally, that in the moment that Demi attacked, she had so much mental fatigue that she just couldn't respond. And I think the legs maybe were there based on the chase that she then had to put on, especially with Van der Breggen just wheel sucking behind. And Kasia did a great chase to stay away from those behind her were coming for those medals. But it's so late in the season, and it's been such a long season for a lot of riders with a lot of pressure with the tour this year. Everything's just getting bigger and bigger, and there's more stress every year, I feel like. And so Demi did a great race. It was great. And great for FDJ Suez, who now have a championship jersey in their team.
Yeah, it's just, I just kept thinking, like, for any rider at this point of the year, post Worlds, you just be so mentally
how do you
done.
line up?
So, like, they're performing actually so well, considering, and like, you got to give Demi credit for picking up that mental game again and delivering. And the other top riders, they tried, and that's also worth giving them some kudos for, because it's actually so hard to try right now. And I could somewhat relate to Kasia's comments on her post-race interview. Not that I was ever in that position as a climber, but just, being in certain positions in general where you want to give and you just can't for one reason or another. Your body's kind of stopped for the year, or your brain is just done. And, of course, there's the mind-body link. So for me, I was always quite mentally fatigued at the end of the season, and then my body would just kind of shut down because of that. But it also like made me think about, you just forget that they're in a lot of pain. And I think that's cool to just have that glimpse of what it's like to be them. Just in some of her words, it was kind of like, oh yeah, they're really just like pushing themselves to the limit week in, week out. And the fact that she knew what she had to do and she couldn't quite do it, that just like told me how much pain she was in mentally and physically in that moment. And like, I've kind of forgotten that because you forget the hard stuff. But yeah, I think that was a nice reminder of like how painful sport is. We're choosing to be in pain, but like what they're doing is actually really hard and incredible.
And Kasia said she's done for the season. She's ready to party. But Demi's not. She's already currently racing as we speak. For FDJ. So Gobic, I think is their kit sponsor, had a really quick turnaround for that European jersey to race Trevally today. And I'll cover Trevally, and I talked about Giro d'Amelia won by Kim Lecourt Pinar in the newsletter. So we have a lot to talk about today. So check out the newsletter for more women's racing coverage that we may have missed in the podcast. But yeah, Trevally is today, and Demi is on that start line. I'm sure that she's excited to end her season too, but not quite yet.
It's just one more week though, right? Because next week is the China races, and then it's done. Then it's like done.
Yeah, we're almost done. And a lot of the riders that would have been riders who would have been targeting the European and World Championships are not the same riders who are targeting the races in China. Very, very different type of rider targeting those two races. I think the races in China, I think this year are actually going to be quite interesting to watch, because there's a lot more teams going this year than they're
hunting points.
Yeah, there's teams hunting points. So there's, like last year we had a Saratiszek clean sweep of all three stages of Chongming Island and Guangxi, and this year I think it's going to be a lot more hotly contested, the wins in China, with bigger teams on the start line. And can confirm Demi's European jersey looks great. FDJ Suez always does a really good job with their championship kits, from national championships to now the European champion. It's like there are UCI rules when it comes to the European champion and the world champion. Like, I bet Rafa would have wanted to go a little bit more wild with Meg's world championship jersey that she's got. But still, it's very clean.
Well, it's not Rafa next year for AF.
No, yeah,
pulled
Rafa's
the pin.
done sponsoring that. I wonder if they have any regrets about that now that the world champ is on the team.
Yeah, I don't think it's in their business strategy.
But they're
Yeah.
sponsoring a men's team though, so they've pulled their sponsorship from a women's team to a.
Hence,
to put
what I
it-
mean
a women's.
is
No comment.
no, yeah, yeah,
Weren't we at that
Well,
dinner?
yeah.
we were at that
Who was it hosted by again?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
No comment.
Speaking of which, we actually have an audio diary from our new world champ, Magdalene Vallieres. And I wrote a piece about her preparation for the World Championships on Escape Collective that you can find linked in the show notes. But this is where I got most of that information from. She sent an audio diary a week after the World Championships, following up on her audio diaries from the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. Let's hear from Mags.
I was already targeting the World Championship already from the beginning of the year, I would say. I knew, looking at the course, that it was a course that could suit me. And my coach, looking at it, said like it was actually a really good course for me. And that if we prepared well, I could do something good. So of course, from the beginning of the season, it was in the back of my head, but I also had many other races to do before and other goals. So the tour was a big goal also for the team. We wanted the best result possible in GC with Cédrine. So we prepared really well in altitude for it. And then, I used the form of the tour and the training from it to boost my form again. So took some rest after it. And then, the month before I went back up in Andorra at the top of the mountain in Pic Maya to get ready. I trained really hard over there and was really focused. That's a bit how the month was. I also added some races to get some speed in the leg with Plouay, and then finished the preparation with the Wallonie, Grand Prix de Wallonie, to test how the form was and get back some speed. So Alison mentioned how serious I was going with the prep. So what was different is I really invested a bit more into it. I going to camp and also putting all the chances on my side. So with Canada, we have to pay to do Worlds. So it was a bigger investment maybe than different Worlds or of a normal race because it wasn't with the team. So and I'm always quite focused, I would say. So in that way, it was not really different. But of course, at the top of a mountain, you're you kind of are really focused because what else is there to do other than riding the bike and rest? So and what was in the bag was actually, so there was a little book from a writer in Kigali, so with some pictures also from artists over there. There was a small bag of coffee beans, and then a water bottle and a jersey, the jersey of the Kigali World. So that was what was in the tote bag.
Okay, that's it for our bike racing talk. We're going to move on into obsessions. And if you don't want to hear about Taylor Swift, you can turn the podcast off now. I'm giving you a heads up because I don't want to hear your comments about this section of the podcast. There are many people who love it. And for those of you who do, stick around. We're going to talk about the life of a showgirl next.
We can do a couple of non-Taylor obsessions though, right?
Do you have non-Taylor obsessions, Moni?
Yeah, of course.
Abby, look,
What?
we're playing with you, but we're not obsessed.
Hold on a second. Am I about to find out that you guys don't love the album?
I haven't listened to
it. Georgie.
Do you not love the album? Are you serious?
I haven't listened to it.
But you're
All
not
right,
part of
Georgie,
this.
you have to start
two.
listening to it on your commute home with just one ear thing in your ear.
Okay, wait. Gracie, do you not like it?
I think it's fine. I don't think it's great.
How many have you
For
listened
the
to
listeners, Abby has she's horizontal on the ground. Gracie has killed
I've
it.
listened to
Abby has
I've listened
exited
to
the
it
conversation.
twice. I was like, I'll give it one go and then I'll give it another go to try and like hear different things. And look,
And it's not just burrowed itself into your brain?
not yet. I'm sure
Not the whole album.
I'm sure there'll be a couple of things that are slow burners, but like my overall take was that it lacked a bit of shine on every single track. There was just something missing on almost every song that I wished there was just something a little bit extra or a little bit different or something a little bit more original. Don't get me wrong, she's a great songwriter. There was a few lines that I thought were a bit crap. There was a few lines that I thought were great. There's certainly a lot of hidden meaning in most of the songs that is fun to dig into a little bit, but I'm not a super fan enough to like fully go down those rabbit holes. But I think that some of her, and I think maybe she's always been like this, but definitely now, half of her business model is the Easter eggs. And I think that's actually taking away from her music now. And I was
agree
just
with that,
waiting for a new sound and it just wasn't there. So definitely catchy, definitely nice tunes and sound, but just I was wanting a bit more.
I'm curious to come back to that in like a week if you listen, if you keep like if you put it on every once in a while for the next week, because I feel like the first listen I was like, all right, like this is like danceable, but it's kind of background music. And since that first listen, I have found myself, I just haven't turned it off. Like poor Arya is just like 24/7, like all hours of the day and night having to listen to Elizabeth Taylor. Like she's
Is that your
that's gonna
favorite
be
track?
her first word. No. But I think that run from Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, Father Figure is like the Opalite, sorry, and then Father Figure is that run of 4 songs is just insane. Like that might be the best run of 4 songs that she's ever started an album with, which I think means that the back half of the album is maybe like a little bit less catchy than the front half. But then you've got something like Wood, which is like hilarious. She said she started writing it as about superstitions, like literally it was about like superstitions, like, oh, knock on wood. But then as she was writing it, it just like got away from her. And I think something that people don't really know about Taylor is that she's really funny, but I don't think she's ever felt confident enough to like be funny in her music. And now she's in this relationship with this person
guy
who loves her and supports her. She's just had the biggest tour of all time. She's like confident. She is comfortable. And so she's like, oh, I'm going to be funny. And she's freaking funny. Like I was cracking up. And I think that one of the things that she does best in this album is she leans into the cringe. Like there are moments when like she says like, I'm not a bad bitch, I'm a savage, which is the title of the newsletter right now about Demi. And I'm wondering if they're going to change it because I can't obviously swear in the title of the newsletter. But like when she said that, I like in Eldest Daughter, I did a cringe because I was like, oh, like savage. Like she said savage in a song, but like Taylor Swift has always been cringe. She's been cringe since she wrote Tim McGraw. Like she's always leaned into the cringe, and in a way she's made cringe cool. And as someone who is frequently told by their husband that they are an incredibly awkward individual, I just love that about Taylor, that she makes cringe a little bit cool. And so for me, this album it's definitely a top 5 Taylor Swift album, 10 out of 10, no skips, like banger after banger. I absolutely love it. I think one of my favorite songs is Kill the Friendship, and that one sent me on like a real roller coaster because I was running and I was listening to it, and the first listen was like in the morning making the girls breakfast, and then the second listen I like gave the girls to Tom's, and I was like, I'm gonna go for a 43-minute run, nobody call me. And so I just like put put it on, ran for the whole song or the whole album. And I was like running to that one and I was like, oh, she's singing about high school. Like, oh, that's so Taylor Swift to like reminisce about high school. And then you get to like the last third of that song and the gut punch of the ending of that song, I like really wasn't expecting it. And I was like ugly scream crying as I was like running down the road in Girona. And yeah, I don't know. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think I was, for me, like I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, but I also don't buy into the Easter eggs. Like if I see some online, I'm like, oh, that's fun, but I don't actively go hunting the Easter eggs or like dig into the lyrics or anything. Like that's not for me. I'm here for the music. I don't care. And I think that she's let the Easter eggs really get away from her. And it might be her downfall in the end is the Easter eggs and everyone reading into all of the lyrics and stuff. Like there's like one line in Canceled where she says, "Did you girl boss too close to the sun?" which is a direct quote from Candace Owens. And like the Easter eggs are getting a bit ridiculous. And I think that might be something that she needs to revisit in the future. But I don't subscribe. I went into this album with zero expectations, knowing that it was going to be a huge swing sound-wise from the Tortured Poets department, especially with where she is in life. And I think this is the first album that Taylor has ever made where she's happy, and you can hear it in the music. Like, ever. I mean, Lover, like, even Lover, she was in love, but like, she wasn't happy. And this is the first time like she has her masters, she's in love, she's ecstatic. And I think because of that, it's just such a fun album. It's fun. It's just fun.
I would agree with that. It is fun. And you can hear that she's happy. I was just a bit confused with the Showgirl title and especially the album artwork. That didn't quite match up with the vibe of the songs for me.
Yeah. I think the marketing of the album has gotten away from Taylor. Like, I think that it was marketed as something more like tied to the Eras Tour, and that's really not what it is. And like obviously the title track is incredible with Sabrina Carpenter, but I don't know if that's the right title of this album. And I don't think it accurately represents the album, but I also don't know what would. And I am sure that she has a greater vision for it. Like for Reputation, it had such bad reviews and reception when she released Reputation, but she had a long-term vision of the stadium show that she would put on when she made that album. And I'm just waiting for the greater picture with this album. But even if there isn't one, I am absolutely loving it.
Okay, a question for you, longtime Swiftie. She talks about having children in the house and all that stuff. Like this is something she wants in the marriage and the picket fence and that. Will Taylor Swift stay so visibly in the public eye when children enter into the picture?
I think she has over the years been really, really good at compartmentalizing what she wants to keep from the public and what she is willing to let the public see. And I think especially in the last couple of years, she's really like clipped her inner circle where she trusts the people that are around her. So I think that she will stay in the public eye, but I think that she knows how to keep her kids out of it. And I think that having friends like Blake Lively, for example, who is really good at keeping, her and Ryan are really good at keeping their kids out of the public eye. Well, they are so famous. She's got people like that she has learned tricks from. And so I think if she wants kids, God, I hope she gets that with her stardom, because it can't be easy to have kids in that kind of environment, knowing what they're going to go through in their lives, having their mom be Taylor Swift. But I don't think she's going anywhere if she has kids. I think that she is addicted to the spotlight, and she also just loves making music. What
did you think of the album, Loren?
I guess your assessment of the album, similar, but I have to say the more I listen to it, the more I like it.
Yeah, unlike Travis Kelce, it's a grower, not a shower.
Yeah. The first time I listened to it, I was like,
"Oh." Joke.
I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Then I went down the deep dive of Reddit. I'm like, nah, don't do that. And then I'm like, listen to it again in the gym, through my whole gym session, listen to it again a bit at work when no one was in the office. And then it's like some of the tracks.
This is how it gets you. This is how it gets you. It
I
weasels,
think I
it
really
like worms its way into your brain, and then you're like, oh my God, it's great.
Georgie's shaking her head.
Yeah, so like
There's no way.
she's like, what's happened? But I
have been silent for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I really like, there's a few tracks I really like, but Eldest Daughter. And I know
one hits
that
so hard.
Yeah, that one hits home for me just because
It hurts.
I always felt like the eldest daughter because of my brother and the way he is. But just in general, the lyrics, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. I really love that song.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah.
I agree. I don't think there's a single song on the album that I don't like. Like, even I think maybe the only one that I don't like love is Canceled, but that's just because it's like such a different sound from the rest of the album, but it's still so good. Like, it's very Reputation coded.
That's actually one of my faves, I think.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, like I think that it could have easily been like a vault track from Reputation.
Yeah.
And so I still really like it. And like in the beginning I was like, oh, I don't know if I like Honey, but actually like it's really cute. It's a really cute song. And I know that there's a lot of backlash about Actually Romantic, but I feel like if you just kind of don't pay attention to the celebrity feuds, then like it's a really fun song. And I also don't really agree with the online assessment of what that song is about. Like, yeah, maybe there's 2 lines in there about Charlie XCX, who has publicly shaded Taylor Swift on many, many occasions, and like, why should Taylor not like clap back at this point? Like, Charlie XCX literally had a campaign for Brat last summer that was a severed hand with friendship bracelets on it. You don't think that was targeted at Taylor Swift and her fans? Like, come on. So yeah, but I think that song is actually more about the online people who love to spend hours and hours hating
Just
Taylor
trolling.
Swift online. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's them. I don't think it's about Charli XCX. So even that song, like, yeah, I think the key to this album, I think a lot of the negative feedback have been people who expected, more tortured poets. And she told us right away, like, that wasn't the sound of this album. You just have to go in with no expectations, and then you're good. You can't be disappointed. Georgie, go listen. God, I can't believe you didn't listen to it.
Georgie's like, I want to commute home and I'm not listening to this album. I'm hungry and it's getting late. But yeah, I would say Eldest Daughter and I think Cancelled are my 2 favorite songs.
Oh.
Yeah, this is what happens.
That was a 15-minute Taylor Swift segment.
You're like, no, it won't be that long.
We stuck. Yeah.
Abby could keep going.
I could keep going. I have a lot to say, and I haven't even really gotten into the subtle nods to other musical eras and the George Michael of it all. But we can wrap it up with this, and there's more in the newsletter, of course. So thanks everyone so much for sticking around for that. Go listen to The Life of a Showgirl. It's very danceable at the very least. And thanks you 3 for putting up with me.
Always.
Thank you, host.
This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Will Jones at Red Bricks Media.